Ambassador Du Jin walked through the Galactic Council chamber one last time. The room felt different now. The grand ceiling still sparkled with artificial stars, but the air had changed. The other species moved differently around him. There was no more mockery in their eyes, only careful respect. Hanbai walked beside him, carrying a new tablet with Earth's final report. She remembered standing here just weeks ago, watching Du Jin suffer the Empire's last insult. Now she watched him walk to the front of the chamber, to the seat that once belonged to the Etherians. "The Council recognizes Earth's representative," the chief speaker announced. His voice shook slightly. Everyone had watched the Empire fall. Everyone had seen the evidence of their crimes. Du Jin stood at the speaker's podium. For 20 years, he had stood here and asked for fairness, begged for respect. Now, he stood as the representative of the species that had brought down an empire. "Members of the Council," he began, "I stand here today not to demand, but to remember." The chamber was silent. Even the usual whispers had stopped. "Remember how the Empire fell," Du Jin continued. "Not through brute force, not through savage violence, but through patience, through careful planning, through the quiet strength that Earth taught us." He touched his own tablet. The screen showed images of Earth, its storms, its predators, its endless challenges. "For 20 years, I stood here and listened to the Empire mock my people," he said. "They called us primitives because we came from a harsh world. They called us savages because we had to fight to survive." The screens change, showing the Empire's fall. The perfect coordination, the careful planning, the complete victory. "But they forgot something important," Du Jin said. "They forgot that Earth taught us more than just survival. It taught us to adapt, to wait, to strike at the perfect moment." Hanbai watched the council members' faces. Some showed fear, others showed respect. All of them showed understanding. "The Empire thought they were teaching us our place," Du Jin continued. "But Earth had already taught us our place. Earth taught us that the strongest creature isn't always the biggest. Sometimes it's the one that learns, the one that watches, the one that waits." He paused, looking at each council member. "We waited 15 years, he said quietly. 15 years of insults, 15 years of sabotage, 15 years of watching our people die because of their pride. And in all that time, they never saw us coming." The screen showed new images, human workers throughout the former empire. Simple jobs that hid careful preparation. Quiet people who changed everything. "Look at these images," Du Jin said. "Look at how we won, not with massive fleets, not with superior weapons, but with patience, with careful planning, with the quiet strength of people who learned survival from the deadliest planet any of you have ever seen." He touched his tablet one final time. The screens went dark. "Earth is not interested in building an empire," he announced. "We don't want to rule. We don't want revenge. We want something much simpler: respect, understanding, and most importantly, peace." The council chamber was absolutely silent. "But remember this," Du Jin's voice grew harder. "Remember what happened to the Empire. Remember how completely they fell. Remember that humans don't just survive. We learn. We adapt. We overcome." He looked at the empty Etherian seats. "The Empire spent centuries building their power," he said. "They thought they were unbeatable. They thought they were safe. They thought primitives from a death world could never threaten them." Du Jin smiled, but there was no humor in it. "They were wrong," he said simply. "And now they're gone. Not because we were stronger, not because we were more advanced, but because we were patient, because we learned, because Earth taught us that sometimes the most dangerous creature is the one that waits in silence." He gathered his tablet and turned to leave. At the door, he stopped and looked back at the council. "Remember the Empire's mistake," he said quietly. "Remember what happens when you push Deathworlders too far. Remember that we're always watching, always learning, always ready. The council watched him leave in silence. In that moment, they finally understood the truth. Humans hadn't just survived their death world. They had learned from it. And now, the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Park Dae-sung stood on the bridge of his ship, the Star Trader, as the Aetherian inspection team came aboard. This was the third inspection this month. Each time, they found new reasons to delay his cargo. "Your ship's safety systems need checking," the lead inspector said. His silver skin gleamed under the ship's lights. "Standard procedure." Dae-sung knew this was a lie. There was nothing standard about these constant inspections, but he smiled and nodded, just as he had been trained to do. "Of course," he said, "though we passed inspection at our last stop." The Aetherian ignored him. The inspection team spread through the ship, carrying their scanning devices. Dae-sung's first officer, Lee Soo-young, watched them with worried eyes. "Captain," she whispered, "they're heading toward the passenger deck. We have 300 colonists in cryo-sleep there." Dae-sung's smile disappeared. "They're not supposed to inspect that area. The colonists' pods can't be disturbed." He started walking quickly toward the passenger deck, Soo-young right behind him. They found the Aetherians already there, standing among the rows of sleeping colonists. Each pod held a person frozen in cryo-sleep, waiting to reach their new home on Mars colony. "This area is restricted," Dae-sung said firmly. "The pods are sensitive too." "Silence, Deathworlder," the lead inspector cut him off. "We detected unusual energy readings here." He pointed his scanner at the nearest pod. "These pods are old models, possibly dangerous. They're standard Earth models," Soo-young said. "Perfectly safe. We've used them for 10 years without." A loud alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the ship. Dae-sung's blood went cold as he saw what the inspector was doing. "Stop," he shouted. "That scanner frequency will interfere with the pod systems." But it was too late. The pod's control panels began to flash warning signals. The temperature inside them was rising fast. The colonists would die if they woke up too quickly from cryosleep. Emergency override. Dae-sung ran to the main control panel. "We need to stabilize the pods now." The lead inspector stepped back, looking at his scanner with fake surprise. "Oh my, it seems your primitive technology is malfunctioning. How unfortunate." Soo-young was already calling the engine room. "Emergency power to pod systems. Redirect everything we've got." But nothing they did worked. One by one, the pods began to fail. Through the small windows, they could see the colonists starting to wake up. It was a death sentence. The human body couldn't survive sudden awakening from cryosleep. "You did this on purpose," Dae-sung said quietly. He watched helplessly as the pod readings showed more and more failing systems. "You knew exactly what that scanner would do." The Aetherian smiled coldly. "Prove it, Deathworlder. Prove that your primitive equipment didn't simply fail. The Council will never believe you over us." 3 hours later, the death count was final. 300 colonists. Parents, children, workers, teachers, all dead. The Aetherian inspection team had already left, their report blaming poor human maintenance for the tragedy. Dae-sung sat in his quarters, staring at nothing. Soo-young entered without knocking. "Captain," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "Earth Command is calling." The screen on his wall lit up. Instead of the usual command officer, he saw General Namgil himself. The general's face was hard as stone. "Captain Park," Namgil said, "I want your full report. Every detail. Every word they said. Everything." "Sir," Dae-sung's voice was hollow. "They murdered them. They murdered 300 people just to remind us of our place." "I know." Namgil's eyes were cold. "And they think they'll get away with it, just like they've gotten away with everything else." He paused. "Captain, have you ever heard of Protocol Thunderstorm?" Dae-sung shook his head. "You're about to." Namgil leaned forward. "What happened on your ship? It's the last straw. We've been gathering evidence, preparing our response, for 15 years. Now it's time. Time for what, sir? Time to show the galaxy why Deathworlders are feared. Namgil's smile was fierce. Time to remind them that humans don't just survive on our harsh world. We conquer it. And now we're going to conquer them. General Namgil walked through the underground command center, his footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. 5 levels below Earth's surface, this place had been waiting for 15 years. Now it was time to use it. He entered the main control room. 50 of Earth's best computer experts sat at their stations. Lieutenant Jinho stood at the center, looking at the giant screen that covered one wall. "Is everything ready?" Namgil asked. Jinho nodded. "Yes, sir. Every backdoor we planted in their systems is still working. 15 years of careful preparation." They never noticed. The screen showed thousands of small dots. Each one was an Etherian military system that humans had secretly changed over the years. Defense platforms, warships, space stations, all of them had hidden codes waiting to be activated. "Show me the numbers again," Namgil ordered. Jinho touched his screen. "We have control of 80% of their automated defense systems. Every time they let our technicians do repairs, we left something behind. Something waiting." Namgil smiled. The Etherians had always looked down on human technology. They thought letting humans fix their simpler systems was safe. They were wrong. "What about their communication networks?" Namgil asked. "Even better." Jinho brought up another map. "Remember all those trade ships they forced to use their approved communication devices? Each one had our special code inside. We can shut down their entire network in seconds." A young technician raised her hand. "Sir, message from Captain Sun and his team. They're in position at all 3 target stations." Namgil nodded. The Ghost Squad had been moving into place for days. No one noticed a few human maintenance workers. No one ever noticed the servants. "Send the signal," Namgil ordered. "Start with their border defense systems." Jinho's fingers flew over his keyboard. On the big screen, hundreds of dots started turning from blue to red. Each red dot was an Etherian system now under human control. "Sir," another technician called out. "They're noticing something wrong at Station 7. "Of course they are," Namgil said calmly. "Let them notice. It's too late to stop it now." More dots turned red. Alarms would be going off all across Etherian space. Their mighty defense platforms would stop responding. Their warships would find their weapons locked. Their communications would start to fail. "Message from Ghost Squad," the young technician reported. "Phase 1 complete. All backdoors are open." Namgil watched the screen. 15 years of planning. 15 years of pretending to be simple technicians, happy to serve. 15 years of hiding their true strength. "Sir," Jinho said quietly, "we're ready for Phase 2. Should I send the message?" Namgil thought about the 300 dead colonists, about decades of insults and tricks, about all the times humans had smiled and bowed while the Etherians laughed. "Send it," he ordered. Jinho pressed a button. Across Etherian space, every screen, every communication device, every public system showed the same message. From Earth Command to Etherian High Command. You wanted savages. Congratulations. You've got them. End message. Their military command is trying to respond, Jinho reported. Their messages aren't getting through. Their emergency protocols are useless. He looked up at Namgil. "Sir, they're completely blind." Namgil picked up his phone. "This is General Namgil. Launch Phase 3. All ships, all stations, all units. Execute Protocol Thunderstorm." Around Earth, hidden shipyards opened. Warships that the Etherians never knew about lifted off. Soldiers who had trained in secret for years moved to their positions. "Sir," Jinho said, "Captain Sunmai reports their central defense network is down. Their home fleet is trapped in dock. Their planetary shields are failing." Namgil watched the screen as more and more Aetherian systems fell under human control. They had called humans primitive. They had treated Earth like a backwater planet full of savages. "Send one more message," Namgil ordered, "to their high command only." He dictated the words carefully. "You should have remembered something about Earth. Our whole planet tried to kill us every day. Everything was stronger, faster, more deadly than us. But we survived. We learned. We conquered our death world. And now we're going to conquer yours." High Commander Orcs of the Aetherian Empire stared at his blank screens in disbelief. One by one, reports of failure came in through the few communication channels still working. Nothing made sense. "How?" he demanded. "How are primitive Deathworlders doing this?" His command center was in chaos. Officers ran back and forth, trying to fix systems that wouldn't respond. Emergency lights flashed everywhere. A junior officer ran up to him. "Sir, we've lost contact with 200 military bases. Our ships won't respond to commands. Even our home defense grid is down." Commander Ta Jin watched all this through the base's security cameras. He sat in a small maintenance room that the Aetherians never bothered to check. Years of being ignored had its advantages. "Command, this is Strike Leader," he said into his comm unit. "They're falling apart just as we planned." "Excellent," General Namgil's voice replied. "Begin Phase 4. Ta Jin pressed a button on his tablet. Throughout the base, hidden speakers came to life. His voice echoed through every room and hallway. "Attention Aetherian Command," he said calmly. "This is Commander Ta Jin of Earth Defense Force. We now control your facilities." In the command center, High Commander Orcs spun around, looking for the source of the voice. "This is impossible," he shouted. "Where are you? How dare you? How?" Ta Jin's voice was almost gentle. "We've been here all along, fixing your machines, cleaning your floors, carrying your messages, all those simple jobs you thought were safe to give to primitives." On Ta Jin's screen, he could see Eric's face turning pale. "The maintenance crews," Orcs whispered. "The repair technicians, all this time." "All this time," Ta Jin agreed. "We were learning, preparing, placing our codes in your systems. You gave us access to everything, because you thought we were too stupid to use it." More reports of failure poured in. The mighty Aetherian fleet was trapped in its docks, weapons dead, engines silent. Space stations that had guarded their borders for centuries now responded only to human commands. "This is your final warning," Ta Jin announced. "Surrender now, or we will show you what Deathworlders can really do." High Commander Orcs grabbed a working communication unit. "Never. We will never surrender to primitives. Our backup systems." "You mean these backup systems?" Ta Jin interrupted. He pressed another button. Across the base, hidden screens came to life. They showed thousands of files, messages, and secret orders, evidence of every crime the Aetherian Empire had committed against Earth and other worlds. 15 years, Ta Jin said. "For 15 years, we gathered proof. Every dirty deal, every sabotaged colony, every murdered human. We have it all." Orcs fell into his command chair. How did you hide this from us?" "You hid it yourselves," Ta Jin replied. "Your pride blinded you. You were so sure humans were primitive that you never looked closely at our work, never questioned why we learned your systems so quickly, never wondered why we accepted your insults with quiet smiles." A new alarm sounded. On the main screen, thousands of ships appeared. The hidden human fleet, built in secret over decades, was finally revealing itself. "Now," Ta Jin said, "you have 1 hour to surrender. After that, we stop being nice. After that, we show you why Earth's creatures evolved to be the galaxy's best survivors." In the command center, High Commander Orcs watched his empire crumbling. Everything they had built, all their power and pride, was falling apart, and it had been done by the very people they had dismissed as savages. One last thing, Tajin added. Those 300 colonists you murdered. Remember them. Remember them well. Because their deaths bought you this one chance to surrender. If you refuse, he paused. Well, then you get to see what real savages look like. The speakers went silent. In his hidden room, Tajin watched the Aetherians running around in panic. They had spent centuries building their empire, thinking they were the most advanced beings in the galaxy. They had forgotten something important. On Earth, the most dangerous creatures weren't always the biggest or strongest. Sometimes, they were the ones that learned to wait, the ones that watched their prey, the ones that struck when the moment was perfect. And humans had learned from every predator Earth had ever made. The hour passed. The Aetherian Empire did not surrender. Lieutenant Hajum stood on the bridge of the Earth warship Thunder, watching the countdown reach 0. Around him, 50 human ships waited in perfect formation. They had trained for this moment for years. All ships report ready, his tactical officer said. Ghost Squad signals green. Ground teams in position. Hajum nodded. Send the final message to command. On Earth, General Namgil received the report. He turned to his staff in the underground command center. They chose pride over survival. Begin the attack. Across Aetherian space, human ships appeared from their hiding places. They had been waiting in asteroid fields, behind moons, in the blind spots of space stations. Now they showed themselves. First wave, launch, Hajun ordered. The Thunder led the attack on the Aetherian capital world. Their ships, still trapped in their docks, could only watch as human vessels approached. Their weapons, locked by hidden codes, stayed silent. They're trying to bypass our controls, reported the Thunder's computer expert. They can't. Every fix they try activates another trap we left in their systems. Hajun watched the main screen as they entered orbit around the Aetherian capital. The mighty planetary shields, pride of their defense system, were already down. Ghost Squad had made sure of that. Ground teams moving in, someone reported. No resistance at primary targets. This was what 15 years of planning looked like. Every government building, every military base, every important location already had humans inside. Workers, cleaners, maintenance crews. They were all soldiers who had waited patiently for this day. Sir, called his communication officer. Message from High Command Orcs. The Aetherian leader's face appeared on the screen. He looked shocked, his silver skin pale with fear. Stop this, Orcs demanded. You can't do this. You're just primitives. Hajum finished for him. Savages. Deathworlders. He smiled. Yes, we are. That's why we're winning. New reports came in every minute. Across 300 star systems, human ships and soldiers took control. The mighty Aetherian Empire, which had ruled space for 1,000 years, fell in less than 6 hours. Message from Team 7. An officer reported. They've secured the Imperial Palace. No casualties. Hajun nodded. They had been ordered to avoid killing when possible. This wasn't about revenge. This was about showing strength. Sir, said his tactical officer, Ghost Squad reports all government centers are under our control. Captain Sunmei says their leaders are being secured. On the ground, human soldiers moved through the capital city. The Aetherians, who had never thought they would need to fight, didn't resist. Their weapons didn't work. Their communications were down. Their leaders were captured. Lieutenant, called his communication officer. General Namgil is asking for a status report. Hajun looked at his display. Green lights showed human control. Red lights showed Aetherian resistance. There were almost no red lights left. Tell him the capital is secured, Hajun said. The Empire has fallen. In the command center on Earth, Namgil received the news. He thought about all the years of preparation, all the insults they had endured while they got ready. Send the final message, he ordered, to all Aetherian worlds. Throughout the former empire, Every working screen showed the same words. To all citizens of the Aetherian Empire, your military is disabled. Your leaders are captured. Your empire has fallen. This was not done for revenge. This was done to teach a lesson. Never mistake patience for weakness. Never confuse civilization with strength. Earth Command. In orbit above the capital, Hajun watched the sun rise over the Aetherian world. In just one day, the most powerful empire in known space had fallen to the primitives they had mocked for so long. Sir, his first officer asked quietly, do you think they understand now? Do they finally see what we really are? Hajun looked at the planet below, where the proud Aetherians were learning what it meant to face creatures from a death world. They're starting to, he said, and they'll never forget it. Captain Sunmi moved silently through the air duct of the Aetherian military base. Her Ghost Squad team was spread across 3 star systems, each member exactly where they needed to be. Years of practice had made them invisible to alien eyes. Team check, she whispered into her comm unit. The words were barely a breath. Team 1 in position, came the first reply. Central command building secured. Team 2 ready, another voice whispered. Weapon control center accessed. Team 3 standing by, said the last voice. Communication hub is ours. Sunli smiled in the darkness. The Aetherians had never thought to guard against human infiltrators. Why would they? Humans were just primitive deathworlders, too simple to understand advanced alien technology. Below her, Chief Engineer Yunwu was working in the base's main computer room. The Aetherians had hired him themselves 2 years ago. They thought he was just another stupid human who could fix their simpler machines. How's it going down there? Sunlei asked quietly. They don't suspect anything, Yunwu replied. I told them I'm doing routine maintenance. They barely looked at me. Sunli checked her wrist computer. The timer showed they had 30 minutes until Protocol Thunderstorm began. 30 minutes to make sure everything was ready. Ghost team, she said, begin final checks. Across the base, hidden humans started their work. Each one had a job that looked normal to alien eyes. Cleaning crews, maintenance workers, cargo handlers. The Aetherians saw them every day, but never really looked at them. Team 1 reporting. Her comm crackled. Override codes planted in defense grid. Team 2. Weapon systems compromised. Team 3. Communication backdoors active. Sunlai watched through a vent as 2 Aetherian officers walked past below. They were talking about the stupid humans who couldn't even build proper spaceships. She had heard talks like this for years while she planned their downfall. Yunwu, she called softly. Status. Almost done, he replied. Just one more. There. Main computer core is ours. They'll never know until it's too late. Sunmei checked her timer again. 20 minutes left. She thought about all the years of training, all the times her team had practiced these moves. The Aetherians thought humans were too primitive to understand stealth. They forgot that Earth's predators had learned to hunt silently millions of years ago. Base commander approaching, Yunwu warned. Time to disappear. Sunmai watched through another vent as the base commander entered the computer room. The tall Aetherian looked down at Yunwu with the usual contempt. Are you finished yet, human? The commander asked. Some of us have important work to do. Yes, sir, Yunwu said, bowing low. Just cleaning up my tools. Everything is working perfectly now. The commander waved him away without another look. He never noticed the small device Yunwu had left behind, hidden in the computer's main core. Ghost team, Sunlight whispered once the commander was gone. Phase 1 complete. Move to Phase 2 positions. Her team moved through the base like shadows. Each member knew exactly where to go and what to do. Years of being ignored by the Aetherians had taught them every hidden path, every blind spot in the security systems. 10 minutes left. Command, this is Ghost Lead. Sunmai reported. All objectives secured. Awaiting Protocol Thunderstorm. General Namgil's voice came back immediately. Good work, Ghost Lead. Stand by for action. 5 minutes. Sunmai thought about all the times she had smiled and bowed to these aliens, all the times they had laughed at humans, all the times they had called Earth a primitive backwater. 1 minute. Ghost Team, she said softly. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. And remember what they did to our people. The timer hit 0. Across the base, hidden devices activated. Computer systems suddenly stopped responding to Aetherian commands. Defense shields started failing. Communication systems went dead. And in the confusion, Ghost Squad moved. Years of practice became perfect action. Before the Aetherians could understand what was happening, their base's most important systems were under human control. Ghost Lead to command. Sunmai reported calmly. Phase 2 complete. The base is ours. She smiled in the darkness as alarms began to sound. The Aetherians were about to learn that humans hadn't survived on Earth by being primitive. They had survived by being clever, patient, and very, very good at hunting their enemies. Du Jin stood at the window of the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber, looking at the artificial stars that decorated the massive space station's dome. His reflection showed a tired man in a perfectly pressed diplomatic uniform. 20 years of being Earth's voice in this chamber had left lines on his face that no medical treatment could erase. Behind him, his assistant Hanbai was reviewing notes on her tablet. She had worked with him long enough to know when he needed a moment of quiet before a council session. The chamber would soon fill with representatives from 100 alien species. Most of them came from gentle worlds with weak gravity and perfect weather. They called themselves the civilized species. Sir, Hanbai said softly, it's time. Du Jin turned from the window and nodded. They walked to Earth's assigned seat, far in the back, where the developing species sat. The stone-like seats were uncomfortable for humans, made without considering Earth's higher gravity. Another small reminder of their place in the galaxy. The chamber filled quickly. The Aetherian Empire's representatives took their usual places at the front. Their tall, thin bodies and silvery skin made them look almost beautiful, but Du Jin had learned that beautiful things could be the most dangerous. The Council recognizes Earth's petition for equal trade rights, the chief speaker announced. His voice carried no emotion, as if he were reading a shopping list. Du Jin stood. This was the 10th time Earth had made this request. Every other time, the Council had said no. But things were different now. Earth had proof of unfair treatment. Honored Council, he began, Earth brings new evidence. Our trading ships are charged 5 times more than others for using jump points. Our goods are held in customs for weeks while others pass through in days. These actions break the Council's own laws. An Aetherian representative stood up, his silver skin gleaming. The savage speaks of laws. How amusing. Quiet laughter rippled through the chamber. Perhaps if your people spent less time fighting each other and more time learning to be civilized, we might consider your request. Du Jin kept his face calm, but his hands gripped the speaking podium tightly. Hanbai watched his knuckles turn white. Our evidence is clear, Du Jin continued. We ask the Council to review it fairly. Evidence, the Aetherian said. From a species that still fights with physical weapons, that builds warships when they should build gardens, that turns every colony into a fortress. More laughter followed. We build fortresses, Du Jin said quietly, because we must. Because even here, in the heart of civilization, we face threats. The Aetherian's face showed disgust. The only threat here is allowing Deathworlders to have equal rights. You would bring chaos to ordered systems, violence to peaceful worlds. Du Jin looked around the chamber. He saw many heads nodding in agreement. These people, these civilized beings, truly believed humans were dangerous animals playing at being advanced. The Council has heard enough. The chief speaker announced. Earth's petition is denied. Again, We recommend focusing on cultural advancement before requesting equal status. As the chamber emptied, Du Jin stayed at the podium. Han Bai waited patiently beside him. She had served in Earth's military before becoming a diplomat. She knew the look in Du Jin's eyes. She had seen it in soldiers who had reached their limit. "Send a message to Earth Command," Du Jin said finally. His voice was very quiet. Tell them I've failed. Tell them that words won't work anymore." Han Bai's hands shook slightly as she typed the message. She knew what this meant. For 20 years, Du Jin had been the voice of peace, arguing against military action. If he was giving up on diplomacy, everything would change. "Sir," she said, "are you sure?" Du Jin looked at her. His eyes were tired but hard. "They want to see us as savages, as dangerous animals from a death world. Perhaps it's time to show them why Earth's creatures survived when others would have died. Perhaps it's time to show them why they should have feared us all along." As they walked out of the chamber, Du Jin's tablet beeped. A message from Earth Command appeared. Understood. Initiating PROTOCOL thunderstorm. Han Bai saw the message and felt cold. She had heard rumors about Protocol Thunderstorm. If they were true, the galaxy was about to learn why humans were called Deathworlders. The Aetherian Empire had just made its last mistake. They had pushed the Deathworlders too far. And now they would learn what happened when humans stopped playing by alien rules. Colonel Kita rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at his computer screen. The military command center was quiet at this late hour. Most officers had gone home, but he couldn't stop reading the document on his screen. What he had found made his blood run cold. The file had come from a routine scan of Aetherian trade databases. At first, it looked like normal business records. But Kita had spent 15 years studying alien data patterns. He knew when something wasn't right. He picked up his phone and called the one person he could trust with this. "Eugene, I need you in my office. Now." Major Eugene arrived 10 minutes later, her intelligence officer uniform slightly wrinkled from a long day's work. She had been Kita's friend since their academy days. If anyone could confirm his findings, it was her. "Look at this," Kita said, pointing to his screen. "See these trade numbers? They don't match." Eugene leaned over his shoulder, her eyes scanning the data. "Show me." Kita pulled up 2 files side by side. "Here's what they report to the Galactic Council. And here's what they actually charge us." His finger traced the differences. "They're stealing from us, Eugene. Not just small amounts. Billions of credits." Eugene's face grew harder as she read. "It's not just random theft," she said. "This is a pattern. Look at the timing." She pointed to several dates. "Every time one of our colonies starts to prosper, these extra charges appear. They're keeping us poor on purpose." Keita nodded. "I checked our other colonies too. Same pattern everywhere. Mars Colony, Titan Base, New Sol, all of them." He opened another file. "But that's not the worst part. Look at this." The new document showed a list of Earth companies. Next to each name was a note. "Potential threat or contains military value." "They're targeting specific businesses," Eugene said quietly. "Any company that could help us grow stronger. Gets special attention." Kita finished. "Higher fees, lost shipments, delayed permits." Eugene straightened up and began pacing the office. Kita knew this habit. She was putting pieces together in her mind. "We need to check something," she said suddenly. She sat at another computer and began typing quickly. "Remember that mining company on Mars? The one that suddenly went bankrupt?" Kita nodded. "Galaxy Mining Corp. They found a huge platinum deposit. Then 3 months later they were broke. Watch this." Eugene pulled up more files. The same week they announced the platinum find, the Aetherians changed their shipping rates. Just for that route. Just for that company. She laughed bitterly. "They killed the company before it could make us stronger." Keita stood up and walked to the window. Earth Command spread out below, its lights bright against the night sky. "How long?" he asked. "How long have they been doing this to us?" Jin checked more files. "Based on these records, at least 50 years, maybe longer." She looked up at her friend. "Kita, this isn't just business. This is warfare. They're just using money instead of weapons." Keita turned back to her. "We need to tell Command, and we need to check if other alien empires are doing the same thing." "Already on it," Jin said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "But Kita, if we're right about this, it changes everything. All those times they called us savages while they smiled at us in the council. They were stabbing us in the back," Kita finished. He sat down heavily in his chair. "We tried to play by their rules. We tried to be civilized. And all this time," his computer beeped. A new message had arrived. The subject line read, "Pyrotosocuol thunderstorm activated." Jin saw it and went very still. "Kita, isn't that the protocol we developed for when diplomacy fails?" Kita smiled, but there was no happiness in it. Yes it is." He opened the message and read it quickly. "Command wants all our evidence, and they want it now." "It's happening, isn't it?" Jin asked quietly. "We're finally going to show them what Earth can really do." Keita nodded as he began copying files. "The Aetherians think they know all about us. They think we're just angry primitives who got lucky with technology." He looked at the growing evidence of the Empire's crimes. Time to show them how dangerous primitives can really be. Dr. Minna stood before the Galactic Council, her tablet filled with centuries of Aetherian secrets. The council chamber was different now. The Aetherian seats stood empty. The other alien species watched her with new eyes. "Let me show you the truth," she said, touching her tablet. The giant screens around the chamber came to life. For 300 years, the Aetherian Empire did more than just mock humans, Minna explained. They actively worked to keep us weak, to keep all younger species weak. Images appeared on the screens, secret orders, hidden reports, records of crimes that the Empire had buried deep in their computers. Human intelligence teams had found them all. "Look at this order," Minna said, highlighting one document. 50 years ago, they discovered a young species learning to use space travel. The Empire didn't help them. Instead, they sabotaged their ships, made them crash, made that species fear space. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Many had similar stories. And here, she continued, showing more files. Every time Earth made progress, they found ways to stop it. They caused accidents, created trade problems, blocked our growth. She touched her tablet again. New images appeared, records of deaths, crashes, and disasters that weren't accidents at all. "But they made a mistake," Minna said. "They thought humans would give up. They didn't understand what Earth taught us." She walked to the center of the chamber. Where once humans had stood as beggars, now she stood as a teacher. "On Earth, everything tried to kill us," she explained. "Big animals, tiny germs, the weather itself. But we didn't just survive. We learned. We adapted. We got stronger." The screen showed new images, Earth's creatures, Earth's storms, Earth's deadly beauty. When the Empire blocked our progress, we adapted. When they sabotaged our trade, we found new ways to grow. When they tried to keep us weak, she smiled, we got stronger. One council member stood up. "But the speed of your attack, the completeness of their fall, how did you do it?" Minna nodded to someone at the back of the chamber. Captain Sunma stepped forward, still wearing her Ghost Squad uniform. "Show them," Minna said. Sunmi touched her own tablet. The screens changed again, showing hundreds of human workers throughout the Empire. Cleaners, mechanics, service workers. All of them were really soldiers, spies, and specialists. The Empire thought these jobs were beneath them, Sunmi explained. So they gave them to us, to primitives, to Deathworlders. She looked around the chamber. They gave us access to everything. The council watched in silence as more evidence appeared. Years of careful planning. Tiny changes made to critical systems. Backdoors hidden in routine maintenance. Codes buried so deep they were impossible to find. We could have destroyed them, Minna said quietly. But that's not what we wanted. We wanted to teach a lesson. To show why you should never mistake patience for weakness. She touched her tablet one final time. The screen showed the Aetherian Empire's current state. Their ships now under human control. Their cities peaceful under human protection. Their people learning to live without their pride. Earth is not asking for revenge, Minna announced. We're not here to create a new empire. We're here to make sure no species ever does what the Aetherians did. The council chamber was silent. These aliens, who had looked down on humans for so long, now saw them differently. The Aetherian Empire fell in 6 hours, Minna concluded. But it took 15 years of patience to make that possible. Remember that. Remember that Deathworlders don't just fight with strength. We fight with time, with patience, with careful planning. She looked at each council member in turn. And remember this, we're still watching, still planning, still ready, because that's what creatures from a Deathworld do. We survive, we adapt, and we never, ever forget our lessons. The council voted that day to accept Earth's new position, not because of the victory over the Aetherians, not because of the hidden strength humans had shown, but because finally they understood what humans really were, survivors who had learned to be patient predators.